For decades after the Cold War, Germany stood as a testament to transformative change. From the ashes of two devastating wars, it emerged not as an aggressor, but as a reconciler. It was seen as a bridge between East and West, a nation deeply committed to diplomacy, economic cooperation, and the very idea of a peaceful, integrated Europe. Its post-war identity was deeply rooted in pacifism, a solemn promise to itself and the world that the horrors of the 20th century would never be repeated. But today, the very foundations of that identity are being violently shaken. Germany, under its new leadership, appears to be adopting an increasingly hardline, almost confrontational stance against Moscow, raising urgent questions about its true intentions. The question we must ask with a renewed sense of urgency is Germany, inadvertently or even intentionally, fomenting a wider war in Europe, and in doing so, abandoning its very historical lessons and jeopardizing the stability of an entire continent? The shift is not subtle, it is seismic. The turning point is undeniably the 2022 escalation of the Ukraine conflict. Before this pivotal moment, public sentiment in Russia painted a vastly different picture. Only a mere 16% of Russians considered Germany an enemy. Think about that. Just a few short years ago, Germany was not perceived as a threat by the vast majority of the Russian people. It was a respected economic partner, a cultural exchange hub, a symbol of post-Cold War normalcy. But that perception has drastically, alarmingly changed. A recent survey by the Levada Center, a Western-funded organization, now reveals a shocking reality. Germany has become the most unfriendly country toward Russia, the staggering 56% of respondents holding this view. This isn't just a statistical anomaly, it's a profound psychological and geopolitical transformation. For the first time in 13 years, Germany has surpassed even the United States on that list. This is not merely a shift in geopolitical strategy. It's a fundamental reordering of trust and animosity on the global stage. What forces, what decisions, what rhetoric could possibly drive such a dramatic and dangerous shift? Much of this profound reorientation can be attributed directly to the new German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, who assumed office in early May. Since then, Merz has not merely continued existing policies. He has significantly intensified aggressive rhetoric towards Russia and taken concrete, verifiable steps to boost military aid to Kyiv. Germany has quickly transformed into one of Kyiv's top backers in terms of weapons deliveries. And under Merz, Germany has not simply maintained these policies. It has doubled down, even pledging to help Kyiv produce its own long-range weapons. This isn't cautious support. This is an embrace of militarization on a scale not seen from Germany in generations. A departure from the very principles that guided its post-war foreign policy. The question then becomes, is this shift a calculated and necessary response to a perceived threat, or is it a dangerous overreaction, pushing Europe further down a path of conflict? The implications for continental stability, and indeed global security, are immense. The scale of German military aid is not just significant, it is truly substantial. Berlin has already provided Ukraine with an astonishing 28 billion euros since early 2022, and has just pledged an additional 5 billion euros. These new funds are not for general humanitarian aid or defensive equipment alone. They are specifically earmarked to finance the production of long-range weapon systems in Ukraine. This isn't merely supplying a defensive capacity. It's actively establishing an offensive capability within Ukraine, funded and supported by Germany. The German Defense Ministry has even ominously stated that a significant number of these weapons could be deployed in just a few weeks. This isn't just about defending Ukraine. It's about actively escalating the conflict by enabling strikes deeper into Russian territory, fundamentally altering the nature of Germany's involvement. A critical, and indeed, particularly contentious point is the ongoing discussion surrounding long-range Taurus cruise missiles. These are not mere artillery shells. These are sophisticated, precision-guided weapons with a formidable range of over 500 kilometers. This range means they are capable of reaching targets deep within Russian territory, including its capital, Moscow itself. And Chancellor Merz has explicitly stated that Ukraine would be allowed to use Western-supplied weapons, including these highly potent missiles, against Russia without range limitations. This is a direct challenge to Russia's declared red lines. A dangerous gamble with the potential for catastrophic, unimaginable consequences. Recent reports indicate that the debate over Taurus missiles within Germany itself has been intense. While some within the German parliament advocate for their delivery, arguing they are essential for Ukraine's defense, others express grave concerns about the escalatory potential. However, Merz's stance has been unwavering, pushing for their deployment and use. This push from Berlin stands in stark contrast to the initial hesitations expressed by some other Western allies, highlighting Germany's increasingly assertive and aggressive posture. Moscow's reaction to these actions has been unequivocal. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated plainly, Germany's direct involvement in the war is now obvious. This is not an accusation, it's a declaration of perceived reality from the Russian perspective. Lavrov has gone further, issuing a dire warning. Germany is sliding down the same slippery slope it already followed a couple of times in the last century, down toward its own collapse, explicitly referring to Germany's devastating defeats in the world wars. This isn't mere rhetoric from Moscow. It's a stark warning rooted in a profound historical memory and a deeply held, most existential fear of encirclement and aggression. For Russia, the return of German military might to its borders, enabled by Berlin's own government, is a chilling echo of a painful past. The rhetoric emanating from German officials, particularly Chancellor Merz, has not only escalated tensions on the ground, but has also drawn sharp criticism from Moscow, which accuses Berlin of rewriting and distorting history to justify its current policies. This claim goes beyond political disagreements. It delves into the realm of collective memory and historical revisionism. State Duma Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin has gone as far as to directly invoke the darkest chapters of history, stating that Germany is reviving its Nazi past by supplying Ukraine with weapons to attack Russia. He issued a chilling warning: German tanks on Russian soil. For the first time since World War II, the potential for German officers to operate Taurus missiles striking Russia could push Germany into another armed conflict with Moscow. These are not just words. They are deliberate, provocative parallels designed to awaken deeply embedded historical traumas and underscore the perceived existential threat. The visual symbolism alone, German tanks, once again, on the doorstep of Russia, is a powerful and unsettling image, resonant with historical pain. For Russia, the memory of the Great Patriotic War is not just history, it is a living wound. Over 27 million Soviet citizens died during World War II, a staggering human cost largely inflicted by Nazi Germany. The sieges, the scorched earth tactics, the genocidal ideology, these are imprinted on the Russian national psyche. Any perceived remilitarization of Germany, especially in a confrontational stance against Russia, triggers those deep-seated anxieties. While contemporary Germany is a democratic state, the symbolism of its military actions, particularly the reintroduction of its hardware into a conflict with Russia, carries an undeniable historical weight that cannot be ignored or simply dismissed as propaganda. From an anti-imperialist perspective, this deliberate invocation of historical parallels serves to highlight the cyclical nature of aggression. When diplomacy is sidelined for militaristic solutions, adding another layer of controversy. Chancellor Merz recently praised Israel's military strikes against Iran, calling it the dirty work that Israel is doing for all of us. This statement, which some have justifiably called revoltingly indecent, has been widely seen by critics as a dangerous justification for preemptive strikes. The implications are profound. Critics argue that if Israel can launch a preemptive strike on Iran because it feels sufficiently threatened, then by Merz's own logic, Germany could theoretically launch a preemptive strike on Moscow if it felt similarly threatened. This chilling Merzian logic, as it's been dubbed, is seen as incredibly dangerous. It's potentially paving the way for further escalations and undermining the very principles of international law and peaceful conflict resolution. If militarized aggression is justified by fear alone, as Merz's words suggest, then the path to widespread conflict becomes terrifyingly short. Further fueling the already escalating tensions are direct statements from German intelligence agencies, which appear to be actively contributing to the narrative of an imminent Russian threat. The incumbent head of the Federal Intelligence Service, Bruno Kohl, has claimed that Russia could attack NATO in the coming years. His rationale? The argues that there are people in Moscow who no longer believe that NATO's Article 5 would be upheld, especially concerning the Baltic states. He even went so far as to suggest Russia could send little green men to Estonia to protect Russian-speaking minorities. Echoing the events in Crimea, these claims, however, are made without public evidence and are consistently and firmly denied by the Kremlin, which states unequivocally that it harbors no aggressive plans toward NATO. This disparity raises a critical question. Are these intelligence assessments genuinely based on irrefutable evidence? Or are they carefully crafted narratives designed to justify a specific foreign policy agenda of military expansion and confrontation? From an anti-imperialist perspective, such unsubstantiated claims often serve to manufacture consent for aggressive policies, preparing public opinion for war. Recently, various international security analysts have pointed out the significant logistical and strategic challenges Russia would face in launching a direct attack on NATO territory, especially considering its ongoing engagement in Ukraine. These analyses often contradict the alarmist claims made by officials like Kale, suggesting that the rhetoric may be more about political mobilization than factual assessment. Russia, on its part, has consistently warned that Western military aid to Kyiv effectively makes NATO a direct participant in the conflict. This is not a subtle distinction for Moscow. It means that the line between supplying weapons and direct engagement has been blurred, potentially making NATO itself a legitimate target in the eyes of Russia. The recent appointment of Martin Jaeger, Germany's current ambassador to Ukraine, as the new head of the BND further signals a likely continuation, if not an outright intensification, of these confrontational policies. Jaeger's credentials speak volumes. He is a longtime advocate of Ukraine joining NATO and an open supporter of what some might term regime change-style policy. Under Jaeger, the BND is expected to receive more funding and more flexibility in conducting overseas espionage. Jaeger himself has publicly stated that Ukraine's future is in NATO, with a clear path to full membership, and that Germany's goal is to help Kyiv win this war, including the complete restoration of the territorial integrity of Ukraine, explicitly implying the recapture of Crimea. This is not simply an intelligence appointment. It's a strategic move to align Germany's intelligence apparatus even more firmly with a confrontational foreign policy, pushing for outcomes that could further destabilize the region. The consequences of Berlin's new, aggressive strategy are not some distant theoretical possibility. They are already visible, impacting the lives of ordinary Germans and shifting the global geopolitical landscape. German industry, once a powerhouse fueled by affordable Russian energy, is now reeling from energy insecurity after breaking ties with Russia. Exports have fallen, and inflation remains stubbornly high compared to pre-22 levels. This is a direct, tangible economic cost borne by the German people, sacrificed at the altar of an increasingly aggressive foreign policy. Industries are struggling, businesses are relocating, and the cost of living for average citizens is rising, eroding their quality of life. This begs the question, is the stated goal of defending European security worth such a profound economic self-infliction? Major German industrial giants, from chemicals to manufacturing, have reported significant production cuts and concerns over long-term competitiveness due to the high energy prices and supply chain disruptions, exacerbated by the current geopolitical climate. Some economic analysts are even warning of a potential deindustrialization trend in Germany, a stark reversal of its post-war economic miracle. Geopolitically, Germany's behavior, its zealous support for Ukraine and its hardened stance against Russia, has had an unintended yet predictable consequence. It has pushed Russia closer to China, Iran, and the global south. Instead of isolating Russia, Berlin might, ironically, be isolating itself, especially as multipolar institutions like BRICS grow stronger and offer viable alternatives to the Western Bloc. This is the profound paradox of an imperialist stance, believing you are isolating your adversary, when in reality, you are pushing them into stronger, more formidable alliances with others, potentially accelerating the decline of unipolar global dominance, and the dissent within Germany itself is growing. While the mainstream media often portrays a unified front, the reality on the ground is more nuanced. Many Germans oppose this war escalation, as seen in rising protests and increasing disapproval of Merz's policies. The narrative of a united front against Russia is cracking under the weight of economic hardship, a genuine desire for peace among the populace, and a growing skepticism about the long-term wisdom of Berlin's current trajectory. Recent public opinion polls in Germany indicate a growing fatigue with the Ukraine conflict and a desire for diplomatic solutions. Even among those who initially supported aid to Kyiv, anti-war demonstrations, though often underreported, are becoming more frequent, reflecting a segment of the population deeply concerned about the economic impact and the risk of wider conflict. From an anti-imperialist perspective, this growing internal opposition highlights a fundamental disconnect. The interests of the political and military bourgeoisie often diverge sharply from the interests of the working people, who bear the brunt of economic hardship and the risk of war. Let's return to Chancellor Merz's chilling words, praising Israel for doing the West's dirty work in bombing Iran. What message is he truly sending with such a statement? Is it that international law is optional for allies, a mere suggestion to be discarded when perceived interests are at stake? Is it that militarized aggression is justified by fear alone, a blank check for preemptive strikes? If Germany accepts this reasoning, then it could soon be the one doing NATO's dirty work against Russia. And that, dear viewers, would be a path toward unimaginable catastrophe, military, economic, and moral. In fact, by actively stoking confrontation and suppressing diplomacy, Germany may be doing what even Washington has started backing away from. Consider the shifting winds in American foreign policy. The U.S., under a potential Trump administration, is reportedly reopening backdoor negotiations with Russia, signaling a possible pivot towards de-escalation, even if controversial. Yet Berlin, seemingly oblivious to these potential shifts, presses the accelerator firmly towards war. This raises a critical question. Is Germany truly acting in its own best interests, or is it pursuing an agenda that serves other, less visible masters? Germany once stood as a symbol of post-war peace and reintegration. It represented the triumph of diplomacy over destruction, of reconciliation over revenge. But today, it is choosing a path of militarization, provocation, and alarming historical amnesia. As Berlin supplies missiles capable of striking Moscow as it deploys its intelligence apparatus, with expanded powers as its leaders praise foreign aggression. And as it deepens what many perceive as war hysteria, we must ask, who really benefits from this dangerous trajectory? Is it the German people, who face rising costs of living and the specter of a wider war? Is it Europe, which risks being dragged into a conflict that could shatter its fragile unity and prosperity? Or is it, perhaps, the powerful arms lobbies, the strategic planners, and the think tanks who view war as a profitable business and peace as a threat to their influence? From an anti-imperialist standpoint, the answer becomes increasingly clear. The beneficiaries of endless conflict are rarely the ordinary citizens, but rather those who profit from the machinery of war. The world is watching with bated breath, and history, with its unforgiving gaze, will ultimately judge. Will Germany be remembered as a peacekeeper, the nation that rose from the ashes to champion diplomacy and cooperation? Or will it be remembered as the nation that, tragically, lit the match for Europe's next devastating war? And don't forget, like the video and subscribe the channel to keep thinking the world how it really is.